for my channel, The Mental Traveler. I'm Caro Herrera, and today I'm going to be reviewing the gothic novella, The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was written by Scottish author Robert Louis Stevenson and published in 1886. Anyways, this will be a spoiler-free video, so you can sit back and enjoy. I think that my first introduction to this story must have been through a children's film called The Page Master. It's about this flesh and blood boy who ends up entering this animated library, befriending several books. By the time I was a teenager, I had become a bibliophile who was instantly drawn to English classics. So this story must have been among the earliest ones that I read back then. But I'm afraid that was quite a while ago, so when I reread this book some weeks ago, it really felt like I was reading it for the first time. And I wanted to read it because I wanted to review it. So I asked my best friend to lend me his copy of it because when I was in Italy I bought him that book. But yeah, anyways, despite my love for English classics and watching adaptations of them, for some reason or other I've never seen a movie or a TV series based on The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I mean, I recently looked up some of them and I hope that I can see at least one soon. But strangely enough, the one that catches my eye the most is Mary Riley, starring Julia Roberts and John Malkovich. It's based on a book which actually tells the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde through the eyes of a servant. And I like this idea of reimagining classics through a female lens. For example, the film Ophelia about Hamlet, or The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein about Frankenstein. Set in 19th century London, this is the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, as the title hints. It's told from the perspective of Mr. Utterson, a lawyer, who is a close friend of Dr. Jekyll, an honest, admirable gentleman who nonetheless causes Utterson cause for concern when he makes a will that states that if he dies, Mr. Hyde is to get everything. Utterson is bewildered by this, suspecting foul play, and begins to investigate who exactly is Mr. Hyde. And the more he learns about him, the more concerned he grows because Mr. Hyde represents everything that is evil in mankind. So the plot follows Utterson as he tries to answer the question of why exactly does Mr. Hyde has influence over Dr. Jekyll, investigating the case, never imagining what is really going on, or what is the exact morbid, mysterious connection between Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I gave The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde a 5 out of 5 stars review. I almost gave it a 4.5 because since it's a novella, it's really short. It's less than 100 pages. But in the end, I do recommend it to any classic gothic lovers. The writing style is very smooth and it had this very dark, dreary elements that makes it a deliciously scary tale. Plus, the fact that it's written almost like a detective story gives it an added bonus in a way. And I already knew how the story ended before I read it, but it was interesting to think about how much this book impacted people back when it was first published in the Victorian era. It deals with a very unheard of concept, or at least one that wasn't really specifically stated in a published work. This secret that it holds between its pages, it's something that humankind must have been experimenting in a way ever since Adam and Eve or something, but back in the 19th century it wasn't really talked about. But yes, anyways, other than the fact that I wish that The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was longer, I don't really have any complaints about it. I like that it touches again on very personal topics like human nature, good versus evil, and these elements manifest differently in every human being. And so when you're done, it leaves you pondering about these issues for a while, or at least that's what happened with me. So yes, it's like a satire of Victorian hypocrisy, where keeping a good appearance in society allowed you, in a way, to do all of this horrible stuff behind closed doors. And when you take this into account and read the book, it gives it a whole new level, more depth. It's not just a scary story, it's actually scary because it's human. Yes. Anyways, for the moment I believe this is all I have to say about The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Thank you so much for watching my review of it. Please let me know if you enjoyed it or not, and what are your own thoughts about it, because I would love to discuss it with you. In the description box below you can find a link to the book's Goodreads page. And yes, if I see one of its adaptations and really like it, I'm sure I'm gonna be reviewing it. But yeah, I'm Caro Herrera, the Mental Traveler, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. I'll be seeing you soon. Goodbye.